Hey, how's it going, everybody? Indypride here with Milk and Cookies Total War. Big Total War Warhammer news on the way. The Beastmen are coming on July 28th, where they will be playable in Grand Campaign, Multiplayer, and Custom Battles. Big thanks to Reddit user Gradash for posting that news. But this video will cover the Beastmen and some of their unit roster in detail. I'll analyze the trailer that just released, and we can make some educated guesses on how the Beastmen will play as a faction. But first, what we know is that they are going to be a Horde faction, with an exclusive movement type similar to the Dwarf Underway stance, in which they cannot be detected. What this means is you'll basically have a mobile ambush force through the forest. Instead of just sitting in one spot waiting for an enemy to walk through your zone of control, you'll be able to quickly move through rough terrain without being spotted, allowing you to strike undefended settlements and then escape back into the Drakewald, which is fittingly exactly how Beastmen should play. Sounds like a pretty cool mechanic. There will also be a new mini-campaign called An Eye for an Eye, in which the Beastmen will be playable. This is a clear reference to the famous rivalry between Caz Rack the One-Eye and Boris Todbringer, Elector Count of Middenland. More on that in a bit. Also important, we will be getting a new lore of magic and spellcaster, the Amber Mage, utilizing the lore of beasts. Hopefully, Creative Assembly doesn't take the easy way out on transformation of Kadon. This is a spell on the tabletop that can turn your mage into a chimera, a hydra, or a dragon. So I'll be really sad if they go the final transmutation route, where it doesn't really look like the actual spell. My expectations might be a little bit high there. I think it might be hard to implement turning a mage into a literal dragon in this game, but we'll see. No more news on the Hunts Marshal, Marcus Wolfhart. It seems like he might not be a part of this pack after all. So I was definitely wrong about that, because I thought that they were truly hinting at Marcus Wolfhart, not at the Beastmen. So let's get into the trailer now. I will periodically stop it and talk about what we're seeing on screen, and drop some lore knowledge on those of you who aren't too familiar with the Beastmen. Okay, so we just saw the hooves there, Beastmen confirmed, but who are the Beastmen and where do they come from? The Beastmen are the children of chaos, descended from outcast mutants, hurled into the cursed woods of the Drakewald and the other forests of the Old World. Although nowhere near as numerous as the Skaven, they are similar in that they are omnipresent, a constant looming force throughout much of the Warhammer world. Their favorite pastimes include gathering at sites called Herdstones, where they collect the meat, loot, and war gear of their fallen enemies, and use fell magic channeled through shamans to corrupt the forest itself. They rape, they kidnap, and they pillage undefended settlements and caravans before melting back into the forest. They are an ambush race, a horde race. As their name would suggest, they are a combination of beast and man, usually growing horns from their heads with goat or bull-like faces and cloven hooves. They are a warlike horde culture and have a massive rivalry with the Wood Elves because of their corruption and defilement of the forests. Occasionally, their small tribes and raiding parties will coalesce into a larger force, much like a Greenskin's Wa, and this is called a Bray Herd. And generally speaking, it takes a being of incredible strength and willpower to unite these violent and squabbling tribes that are all over the place and put them into a cohesive fighting force. But when it happens, things get very, very scary for the factions of Order in the Warhammer world. Like I said, they rape and they murder on a massive scale. They also eat human flesh. They smear feces on everything they can get their hands on. They are not a very pleasant race. Beastmen are chaos-aligned creatures, and the followers of these Bray Herds will often pledge their life to a chaos god, just as a chaos warrior or an aspiring champion would. It's important to understand that chaos-aligned creatures often don't get along. As you guys know, Slaanesh and Khorne hate each other, Nurgle and Tzeentch hate each other. There's infighting within their race as well, and with the warriors and demons of chaos within the Beastmen. So when Archaon comes and the Chaos Invasion starts in our Total War Warhammer campaigns, they won't be automatically allied with the Ruinous Powers, but they probably won't start at war with them either. They're just going to be a chaos force that corrupts the lands but isn't necessarily aligned with the Warriors of Chaos. The Drakwold Forest, also known as the Dragon's Wood, and Middenland will be the focus of the Eye for an Eye mini-campaign. It's a very important and very dangerous forest where Caz Rack, the One-Eye, makes his home with his Bray Herd. Let's continue the trailer. This is Caz Rack the One-Eye, the most feared beast lord in the Drakwold, a brutal force of nature whose animal cunning is far beyond that of his savage kin. How do I know it's Caz Rack? A little bit later on in the trailer, we'll see his missing eye, although it doesn't really pop out that much. But you see those runes on his sword? Those are the exact same runes he has on his tabletop model. I'll show it in a minute. He has an unnerving ability to spring lethal ambushes, which is awesome because the Beastmen should absolutely be the faction that most often uses ambushes and deception in a Total War Warhammer campaign. I would expect most, if not all of their roster to have Vanguard deployment, which means they'll be able to deploy outside of their deployment zone at the start of a battle, and hopefully you'll be able to ambush from their Drakwold march stance as well. Caz Rack's Bray Herd has wrought havoc throughout the Drakwold Forest and also drawn the attention of the One-Eye's most bitter adversary, Boris Todbringer, Elector Count of Middenland, who will fittingly be Caz Rack's main nemesis in the Eye for an Eye campaign. These two have a storied history, a rivalry that goes back decades. Todbringer famously pierced Caz Rack's eye with his Runefang leg biter, a wound that never actually healed for the Bray Herd warrior and continuously weeps pus and blood. But later on in their story, Caz Rack actually paid the wound back in kind with his own ambush when he tackled the Elector Count to the ground and slowly gouged out his eye with one of his horns. I think that this nemesis, this rivalry, is going to be a perfect setting for a campaign. I do seriously hope, though, that Middenland will get some more love as a playable faction. Perhaps we'll get to see Knights of the White Wolf and maybe a few other units that worship the war god Ulrich, some Ulrich warrior priests, those kind of things. That would be a really nice touch. Here we get a look at the Bestigors and Ungors. Ungors are the most common and physically humanoid breed of Beastmen, and they're very low on the totem pole of Beastmen culture. They have small horns, and they're not particularly strong or intelligent. They're basically outclassed by Gors and Bestigors in every single way. They're the crappy Marauders of the Beastmen army, probably actually a little bit worse than Marauders. Bestigors, on the other hand, are the strongest and meanest of all the Bray Herd's foot soldiers. They're prone to acts of excessive violence, and they rank above Gors and Ungors, and will be about on par with Chaos Warriors, I would think. In terms of physical strength, probably stronger than your average Chaos Warrior, but certainly less armor. Expect them to be equipped with great weapons, have a big charge bonus, but less staying power than a typical shielded Chaos unit. I very much wish we could get some of those match combat animations back. I understand that it doesn't need to be something like omnipresent where it's every single killing animation is match combat, but seeing animations like that really makes me want it back in the game. They're just a lot of fun, and I don't think they're hinting at a repeater gunpowder unit for the Empire. I think that's the exact same weapon that is carried by the Outriders for the Empire, but definitely cool to see a Captain of the Empire rocking that thing in combat. That is a razor gore, terrifying boar abomination far larger than a normal boar, and it consists of bare, unskinned muscle covered by many spikes and tusks that freely protrude from its body. These creatures will ram into enemy formations with enormous power, various tusks ripping flesh apart and piercing even the finest gromril or plate armor. They'll function a lot like trolls, I think, units of 8 or 12. You'll charge them into enemy formations, break them apart, while the bestigors follow up on their attack. And that scary thing is a Cygor, a cousin of the Minotaur that took a different evolutionary path than Gorgons or Doombulls. They have a single eye through which they can see the winds of magic themselves, and they're attuned to all manner of creatures who utilize these winds or hail from the warp, which means demons of chaos and mages shine very brightly in their singular vision, while normal warriors often go unnoticed. What this means is that the Cygor is a mage killer, able to interfere with the winds of magic and frequently cause miscasts that can damage or kill spellcasters, or take massive boulders and hurl them across the battlefield to smash enemy mages with surprising precision. It would be awesome if CA implemented gameplay elements to reflect this counter mage mentality from the lore, but I have a feeling it's going to play more like a giant. You'll run into melee with it, smash things to a bloody pulp, that kind of thing. So that wasn't my favorite Creative Assembly trailer ever. I think they have done some better ones, but it's still awesome to see the Beastmen in all of their glory finally brought to life in a video game. Thank you to CA for living up to the hype and delivering an awesome faction. I think I speak for at least most of the community when I say we are very excited to see the Children of Chaos in action. So we know Caz Rack the One-Eye will be one of the legendary Lord characters for the Beastmen, but who will be the other? I believe that honor will belong to Malagor the Dark Omen, the Crowfather and despoiler of the Sacred. He was hinted as the father of crows in that letter addressed to the Hunts Marshal that CA teased on Facebook. And he's a dark figure who portends the destruction and downfall of humanity, the doom of mankind personified. He is a Bray Shaman who utilizes spells from the lore of Wild, lore of Shadow, lore of Death, and lore of Beasts. Although it will be very interesting to see which CA decides to give him. I kind of get the impression that CA won't be implementing Beastmen-specific lores of magic yet, which would mean lore of Wild wouldn't make it in. Hopefully it does, though. Maybe they are implementing it. I mean, it is the one time Beastmen will be released as a DLC faction, so it would make sense to add lore of Wild, but I don't know that they will. We'll see. One of the cool things about him is that he also has black crow wings, which give him flying special rules. So he would definitely be a flying lord, although, to be honest, CA didn't go that route with Kemmler, despite the Lich Master being able to fly in the tabletop game, so they might not let him use his wings, which would definitely be unfortunate. We shall see. They might make him a dual caster, that would be a nice touch. But as for the generic lord and hero choices, Beast Lords, Doombulls, and Bray Shamans will be the go-to characters. Beast Lords are just bestigors who have ascended to leadership positions and are very powerful warriors, as you would expect. Doombulls are ascended minotaurs who have grown massively strong and I cannot wait to see them in action. They're one of my favorite generic Lord characters from the tabletop, and Bray Shamans will be mini-me versions of Malagor. Certainly not as cool, but with access to hopefully the lore of Wild, but if not, probably the lore of Beasts. Perhaps the most terrifying Beastman unit is a Gorgon, a cannibal minotaur who has grown to grotesque proportions and mutated by chaos corruption into a many-limbed and massively built monstrosity. They are very rare, but considered the ultimate carnivores, capable of devouring an entire Beastman tribe in a single night of gluttony and violence. Gorgons will be immune to psychology, have frenzy, which will give them a bonus to melee attack and cause terror, which makes a lot of sense when you look at the model. They are terrifying to behold, and I cannot wait to see them in action. So let me know what you guys think. Are you guys excited for Beastmen? Which units or Lord characters do you want to see in action the most? I personally really wanted to see Torox the Brass Bull, but he is certainly less important in the lore and the tabletop game than Caz Rack the One-Eye and Malagor the Dark Omen, who I think are quite good Lord choices for the game and reflect the duality between Melee Lord and Mage Lord that CA has been going for. I very much hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.